Hello everyone, welcome back to Social Club. We've all seen by now Diego Costa having a bit of a spat with Conte over the weekend, leading to talks of could he be off to China or get lost and fuck off to China or however it was phrased. But yeah, I guess it begs the further question because it doesn't look like it's something that's going to happen in the January transfer window. But could this situation create a toxic atmosphere inside Chelsea and derail their title chances? Sam, what do you reckon?
What a shame it would be if that happened, eh? Diego Costa, one of the most likeable, lovable men in world football, getting distracted by money. And I suppose it's a bit ironic that it happens to Chelsea, the people who effectively brought China to the Premier League. They were the China club in the Premier League, bringing all the money in. And of course it can derail it. He is their top goal scorer. He is the focal point of their attack. He is their main man up front. To say that any team, Kane out of Spurs, Ibrahimovic out of United, Aguero out of City, that can derail any title campaign. But will it? I don't know. They seem to have coped well without him at the weekend, and they coped well without him when they played previously, when he was banned. But it's just a bit of a strange situation. You obviously got Payet situation at West Ham and Costa at Chelsea. It's what football is now, and how clubs cope with it is.
I realise what we can do is that in an aping of the Long Ball Street podcast, we can ask Craig, who's off camera. Craig, what are your options other than Costa then? Actual centre forward. You got Batchwise. Is there any other actual centre forwards there? Doesn't need him. Don't need centre forward. No, it's interesting because again, on paper, it looks like they're still pretty well stocked to handle this. Yeah. But it's right. I mean, Diego Costa, from the outside looking in, looks like a toxic influence because he just looks like a horrible human. He looks like the baddie out of a spaghetti western movie. Let's be perfectly honest. But he. If that starts to seep into the actual, into the behind the scenes thing, I think there is a mentality issue there. You can't have guys who are upsetting the apple cart. The team unity is so important when you're right at the cutting edge of a season. It could have a negative impact on them.
Absolutely, and you saw it last year. He wasn't happy, and when he wasn't happy, he wasn't playing very well. This year, Conte obviously got him going, got him firing. He proved that he was. Well, there was one game where he wanted to come off, but Conte was like, "No, I need you up front. Anyone but Batshuayi." And so he played, and that weirdly looked like a bit of a masterstroke from Conte. That he was getting the best out of him and showing that he was so important to the team. But it could derail it a little bit, just because I can't see him going. Certainly not in January. If it did, that would be a shocking move for the Premier League as a whole. But certainly it could create that bad blood in the change room, which is such a huge thing. He has scored 14 goals for them this season and a lot of winning goals as well. So if it gets to a point where he's not being that main man that he has been before, then...
What do you think, Dave? Statistically speaking, and from the limited examples of what we've seen of them without him this season, they've coped all right. They've still got Hazard can play, they've got Pedro can play there, and the aforementioned missing man, Michy Batshuayi. But so, in your expert statistical analysis opinion, will they be okay if they never played Costa the game between now and the end of the season?
I think it'll be an interesting one. I think what Costa gives Chelsea in terms of a defensive work rate is unbelievable. One of the best strikers in the world in terms of what he does. In defensive sense, it gives the likes of Eden Hazard to be able to sit on the counter-attack and break. And he's also a focal point. You see the goal that he scored a few weeks ago, the header. That was out of nothing, and that's something that Diego Costa can do. In terms of Eden Hazard playing that central role, it's quite interesting. I see him as sort of a Lionel Messi player. If he were to look up to anyone, it's Lionel Messi, right? In terms of the way he dribbles, in terms of the way he shoots, he creates chances in that sort of way. He saw against Leicester City, absolutely fantastic playing false nine. Drifting out of the position, letting the runners come inside. So I think in a tactical sense, it could definitely work. It's just if Eden Hazard can, score as many goals as Costa, that is the big question. Can he become the main goal scorer?
Do you think the two games, the Bournemouth game and the Leicester game, that almost suited tactically those kind of three up front? Because you've got Leicester who aren't the most mobile defences, and Bournemouth who I think have conceded 3 goals in most of the last sort of 10 games or something like that. Do you think there's any way that might be slightly misleading how well they've played in those 2 games?
I think it'll be a test when they come up against the likes of Liverpool, maybe when they need a bit of an outlet. They will sit deep. They do drop into more of a 5 at the back, you'd say, a 5-4-1. So they do need an outlet, and if you are playing long balls to Hazard, maybe that's not going to be his strength. So they may have to adapt how they're getting out in a way. Hazard needs to come to the ball a little bit more than Costa. Then they sort of play out. But I think it does work in terms of Williams coming back into the side and has looked really, really good in recent weeks in terms of goal scoring, creating. So for me, I'm not too worried about Chelsea in terms of them dropping off the pace, because I think Eden Hazard could fill in there, but it's just a different type of weapon. And I think against a team that does sit deep, maybe a Burnley they'd struggle against.
Yeah, it's one of those things with the Hazard thing for me, Sam, is that look, he's a phenomenal talent, but he falls into that same category. Look why Diego Costa's been so good this season, why he was so good the season before last, is that thing that Dave mentions about his ability to make something out of nothing. Just because he's gnarly. He's such a gnarly player. Eden Hazard, as much as he looks again, he similarly looks rejuvenated this season. When it gets down to it, if he's just not quite in that game, and I know they've got the options there to rotate him out if needs be, but I think this is the thing about Hazard, he's not got the power to lead lines in certain type of games, but also does he have the right mentality again when in those situations?
I think if you're looking at, obviously Hazard sums up, like 2 years ago won Player of the Year, then he disappeared for a year, Mourinho, the collapse with Chelsea, and he's come back again. And I think that's where I don't think the interesting thing with Costa is whether Chelsea can replace the goals, because I think they will. I think they've got enough attacking options. It's how will that dressing room cope, because this is the same team that last year collapsed under Mourinho and everything was pointed towards him as saying it was his fault. Now all of a sudden Costa's refused to train for 3 days. There's something else still in the club somewhere, whether it's still in the individuals, and it's a lot of those players are still there. So could that be the wrong sort of catalyst for Chelsea, and it might spark maybe because Hazard disappeared last year as well. Maybe there is something else going on behind the scenes.
Well,
it's one of those
if you pander to him. That's one of those situations, isn't it? I think there's one thing. I think a lot of people can go, if issues are resolved, you can go, you were a bit of a dickhead there, mate. But we've all got dickhead in us. We're at Chelsea for the start. You know, it's kind of part of the contract, isn't it? But there's also a thing where, you know, if the club go, oh Diego, please, pretty please, here's, because this is the thing. The agent's looking to take him up to 300 grand a week, you know, basically that's what he's angling for, a lot of this stuff, and all of a sudden you act like a knobhead, and it's because you want to get loads of money. Well, let's be honest, a club like Chelsea, who have spent money to get players to that club, a lot of money, that's the kind of thing that could upset the apple cart, because all of a sudden you've got a lot of guys who are on big wages going, all I've got to do is act like a knobhead and I get double my wages. That's something that they're going to have to watch out for big time, I think. But interesting to know people's thoughts watching at home. And actually, it's an interesting thing, James, because we are going to heavily plug the Long Ball Street podcast right now. I think the Dimitri Payet stuff is very interesting, something that we'll be discussing on the podcast this week. So if you've not gone onto the Long Ball Street podcast, please do click the link to subscribe to the YouTube channel. That's still a thing, right? Yeah, absolutely. There you go. See, I know things, particularly when people can corroborate them next to me. Click on that, go and subscribe to that, and check out the rest of Social Club this week. We're going to be discussing is modern football failing Paul Pogba, and we're going to be answering some of your questions as well.